Hi, and thank you for listening. This is Sherry Andrea, and I bring to you another answer for a question that I received. What are the triggers to or of a spiritual awakening? So basically, what triggers it? Now, let me just mention to you before I go on to the end, just in case you're not going to listen to this whole audio, which I know you are, but because it's going to be fairly short one. But if you are looking for me, you want spiritual or personal development coaching, or you have a couple questions that you want to answer, some things cleared up, you can find me on my website, sherryandrea.com, and I do have a link there called Get Help Now, where you can make a donation of any amount, whatever donation you would like to, and we can have a 30-minute conversation on the phone. Now, of course, as always, if I don't have anything scheduled and I have time, I don't have any projects to work on, because I do technically have a job, a business that I work that allows me to make money. I don't make money from this, but I do have a job where I work as using my old skills as IT specialist, database administration, web developer. I use those skills to make money, to allow me to do this. So, as long as I don't have anything scheduled, if you need more than 30 minutes, of course, I always give as much time as is needed. Anyway, so the question is, what are the triggers to a spiritual awakening? Or what triggers spiritual awakening? Anything. That's basically the answer. Anything can trigger a spiritual awakening. And a spiritual awakening often isn't it shouldn't be thought of as a one-time event. It's a process that happens over time. Okay, so the trigger may be a realization of something, and I will give you mine as an example. I have had many awakenings. What I mean is, you can have different types of awakenings. Sometimes people spontaneously have an awakening to psychic abilities, like this ability just begins to manifest. They don't know why. As far as they know, they haven't done anything. An ability starts to awaken, and often, many times, they're not exactly happy about it. Just imagine for yourself, if just like day and night, you just woke up one day and you had the ability for clear seeing, where you just saw things. You saw auras around people, you saw orbs, you saw energy fields around everything that is energy, which is everything. You maybe were even able to see illness and sickness within people. You were maybe able to see something different on people when they were getting ready to die, or when death was going to be near. This would probably be, I don't want to say it would be negative to you, but this would be something to adjust to. So you can imagine some people that have a psychic awakening suddenly, it's not a great experience all the time for them. It is something they end up struggling with. Then, based on their beliefs, if, let's say, for example, they're Christian and maybe they've been heavily involved in the church all their life, they may have a belief that spiritual abilities, they aren't good and they're not of God. So this awakening may be torturous to them. They may start thinking, how is this good? I've been a member, I've been a Christian all my life, and I'm heavily religious, and I've always believed that people that had that had psychic abilities were not doing anything that was of God, and now here I am, some psychic abilities awakening in me. How am I supposed to make sense of that? So an awakening is often, sometimes harsh like that. It puts you through something that has you questioning things. Now, my spiritual awakening happened when something happened that led me to realize I never knew who I truly was. It was an awakening to, I don't know who I am. I have no clue who I am. And because this happened when I was in my early 40s, no, my late 30s, this was very difficult for me to deal with, and it led to me going through a depression for a short amount of time. Short, it was probably like a year. Looking back, it seems short. At the time, it didn't. But a realization of something that is that brings you to some truth that you didn't have before, some new level of understanding, and it may greatly conflict with what you've always maybe believed, or it may greatly conflict with who you always thought you were. To realize that you're not that, if you've had 40 years of thinking, I'm this is who I am, and all of a sudden to realize not only that's not who you are, but that you don't know who you are. For some people, this can be a very traumatic experience. It leads to an awakening of sorts that leads you on a journey to then be searching for who you truly are, your true self, to be on a journey searching that's called self-realization. Now, I've just mentioned a couple different types of awakenings. I mentioned one that's metaphysical, a psychic awakening where, unbeknownst to you, as far as you're concerned, you haven't done anything that would have led to that, but it happened. And I've also mentioned a more spiritual awakening, you could call it, where it's about some realization of the self, some truth you've realized. Sometimes an awakening can come about because maybe for example, you all your life you were Christian and you were very religious, and you went with a friend that wanted to visit a Buddhist temple, and maybe while you were there you heard some things, they said some things that made sense to you, but greatly conflicted with the truth you've believed in all your life, the truth that you had been taught. And sometimes these conflicting things lead to an awakening. Now, sometimes this is really hard for people. It really, makes their head spin, throws them for a loop, because, like I said, maybe it greatly conflicts with what they've believed all their life. So to answer the question, what triggers it? Literally anything can trigger it. A traumatic event can trigger it. Something beautiful happening, like the birth of a child, could also trigger it. Maybe the birth of a child could have you thinking things and realizing things that cause you to then begin to go through that process of awakening. So literally anything can trigger it. So then the question becomes, if you think you're going through a spiritual awakening, why? What is it? What's the reason why you feel you're going through a spiritual awakening? What was that event that triggered it? What did it lead you to understand that's different from what your understanding used to be? It's just a start. It's just a starting point. And it'll start you on your journey, and you'll find different things. Not everybody goes in the same direction after an awakening. Some go down this road, some go down that road, some to go down another road. Some simply go down a certain road and a path because in the beginning they were just looking for answers and they really weren't sure which direction to head. So sometimes we'll end up going down a path to just get part of the way down that path, to then begin hearing guidance, to then go, oh, no, now I realize this isn't the path that I should have taken. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go down the right path or this other path. And, there is no right and wrong when you begin on that, after that awakening and you start on your journey. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is no right direction, there is no wrong direction. Whatever path you take will lead to learning. It will lead to lessons that will lead to understandings. There is no right and wrong as far as which direction you head. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute, what about the person that went through an awakening and for some reason they got into dark arts? They took that path. Maybe they were meant to take that path. Let me give you a scenario. There, I am sure, are many people who have done just that. They've gone through an awakening, and when searching for the direction ahead, they ended up going down the path of dark arts. And let's say they went down that path for a little bit. But then one day, something else triggered and awakened them to the fact, well, wait a minute. And this isn't the right road that I should have taken. This isn't the way. And so they changed and they began going down a different path. But now they have this experience. They went down the path of dark arts. They got back on, another path, and maybe that was a path that led them to spiritual work, spiritually awakening, self-discovery, and it led them to working on spiritual advancement, spiritual development. Maybe that was for a reason. Maybe it was because there were some people that they were meant to help at some point in their life that had that experience, that were involved in the dark arts. The question is, do you think that maybe God is setting it up and saying, your path and your purpose in life, you're meant to help these people who ended up going down this path, and then when they're ready to try to take the right path, you're meant to be there and help them. But the only way you can really, really help them is having had that experience, being able to understand where they're at, what they're going through, what they're experiencing, to be able to help them. How can you help someone without having the understanding of what they're dealing with? Now, many people understand that when it comes to things like, people who there are many coaches who specialize in helping people overcome addictions, where the reason why they're good at that is because they themselves used to have an addiction problem. Now, often people get this. They can understand that. They can understand someone becoming an addiction coach because they used to have an addiction problem and they overcame it. And so now maybe they're coaching people to help them with this. Oh, we get that. But do we not get that for any situation, anything people are dealing with, that people who can help them best are people who can relate to what they're going through? So get your focus off of criticizing them harshly for where they're at and what they're going through, and understand that there may be something that you don't see, that you don't understand. I'm sure many of you have heard the phrase, his ways are not our ways, meaning you can't understand everything God does. You can't understand God's plan. You can't understand God's way of thinking and planning and his purpose and everything. His ways are not our ways. Don't think yourself to know more than God, because that's what you would be doing. If you criticize someone who's following a certain path, call them evil, call them whatever you want to. But what if that's the path that they were meant to go down for a little while, so that they could gain some experience and understanding, so that at a later time in life they would be able to help people who were going through the same thing. And if that's what God has planned for them, who are you to question it? Who are you to say you know better than God? So sometimes with your negative ego uncontrolled, and with humility for God, humility for what God can do, you just sit down and just let whatever is planned and whatever has to happen, even if you cannot understand it. Look, the fact of the matter is, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that there's not a reason for it. That's ego. Basically, if you think, oh, well, this doesn't make any sense to me, this goes against what my pastor is teaching, I think this is wrong. Just because you don't get it doesn't mean there's not some purpose for it. You don't know everything. You have to have a certain level of humility to be able to take that back seat and to sit down and go, okay, well, yeah, I know that that's not the right direction for any of us to travel on. That's not the right path for any of us to take. However, His ways are not our ways. And I may not understand what God has planned. Sometimes that's what you just simply have to say and sit down and keep your mouth quiet and just be the silent observer, so that maybe, just maybe, you can actually learn something from it. You might be amazed if you just take a back seat and just sit down and just observe. You may be amazed at what you end up seeing, at what you end up discovering. So, basically, this video answered the question of the spiritual awakening and what triggers it. So remember, the answer is anything can trigger it. Anything at all. That's whether it's a spiritual awakening, psychic awakenings. Often they can be spontaneous, but they can also happen because of something else. For example, empathy, even if you have lived your whole life not thinking you're an empath, and then all of a sudden you start having experiences that lead you to believe you're an empath, and you don't know when or how that happened, that's who you've been all your life. However, maybe something happened, such as the birth of a child, that greatly opened up your heart chakra, that allowed that empathy, that ability to come to the surface. You were always, since you were born, a spiritual being. But maybe your whole life you weren't spiritual. And then suddenly one day that awakened. All of a sudden you're this person who's focused on spiritual advancement. When did that happen? Well, I'll tell you, it didn't just happen. Yeah, you may be just awakening to it, just awakening to the realization. But you were that all your life. But maybe hearing someone say something, hearing someone teach a certain spiritual topic, triggered something within you. So anything can trigger spiritual awakening. And a psychic awakening, there are things that can trigger that too, such as the birth of a child that opens up your heart chakra. I hope that this has helped not just answer the question, but at least got you thinking and pondering As I usually say to my coaching clients, I don't expect them to take what I say, like right off the bat, as absolute truth. What I expect them to do is I expect them to let it sit with them. Maybe, after a couple weeks of meditating, they will come to what the truth is for them. You could think of it as this way. I give you ideas, I give you potential concepts, but it is within you that you have to come to what's the truth for you. Some of the things I say just may simply start you to thinking and pondering, to then be able to come to what you believe your own truth about it is. So I do not expect anyone to just take the things I say and run with them and take them on as a belief. It's a process. From your own experiences, you will be able to gain your own understandings. But maybe I've just presented an idea to you, a concept to you that you can ponder to figure out what you believe about it. I thank you for listening. I hope you found this helpful. As always, if you've had some experiences, feel free to share those. If you've had some, if you've been through a spiritual awakening, psychic awakening, feel free to share those experiences and what it taught you, what you learned from it. I would love to hear from you, and so would everyone else, because it's helpful. It's helpful to everyone to hear different perspectives, different points of view from different people's experiences. Remember, you can find me at SherryAndrea.com. If you're into the healing arts, my site, SherrySpeaks.com, has a community of a lot of people who are into the healing arts. And we would love for you to join us there. And remember to check us out on Blog Talk Radio every Tuesday and Friday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is blogtalkradio.com/seekers of truth. And we would love, we answer your questions and give psychic readings, which are actually higher self readings. We've been doing that for quite some time. We do often do a combination of a psychic reading and a coaching. It's a unique combination. We answer the question, but then we also give what you would expect to get if you were going through coaching with someone. So we do, in fact, expect someone to, from asking a question, to get information and help they can actually use in their life to help them make decisions on what directions they're going to have, things they're going to do. We try to help people with what they can do to help themselves to make the better choices that are going to lead to a place in their life where they're going to be happy and content, and that's what it's all about. Thank you. Have a great day. Namaste.